Hello there, thanks for stopping by. My name is Mr. B and welcome to the first of my 15-minute history lessons with these wonderful artefacts that I'm very happy to own, which I normally use for my school workshops, but I've decided to give you in a home learning session to let you look at those artefacts as if you are holding them. So without further ado, our first lesson is all going to be about the Stone Age. We're going to have a few episodes about the Stone Age, and then we're going to move on to other periods of history. Like I say, it's only 15 minutes and there'll be some lesson ideas at the end as well. So here we go with the Stone Age. Okay, so first, before we get started, I know it's tempting to get stuck into all these artifacts straight away. And if you've had any of my workshops, I do know that that's your favourite part. I think sometimes I could just send the artifacts and not me, and people would just enjoy that. But yeah, before we dive into that and look at the artifacts, we do need to have a look at how it's structured. All history is about a timeline, of course. You'll know this in your primary schools, and maybe you can enlighten your parents on this about how nowadays in primary schools we learn so much about timelines, about how it slots together. So I'm sure you've seen them all around your classroom. A timeline, for those people who don't know it, though I'm sure you do, is the idea that time comes in periods, one after the other, and you can't get to the one where we are now, or the one after, if you like, the one that came before. So if you can imagine a set of stairs with the bottom stairs missing, then you couldn't get to the top. So the invention of the wheel, of course, thousands of years ago, led to the invention of the car. So that's a simple example, but basically it just means that everything has to be in order. So first of all, let's look at the first period of the Stone Age. Now that's the Paleolithic. Now the big thing, the very big thing about the Paleolithic is it's huge. It's 2.5 million years long. It's so long. Now we define the start of it from the first period when man first, or humans should I say, it might have been a woman, we don't know, first sharpened the first stone tool. About 2.5 million years ago. That person was called Homo habilis. Now that leads us on to the next part. All of you guys are Homo sapiens. Everybody on the earth is. But in those days, at the start of the Stone Age, there were several different kinds of humans on earth that all began with Homo, but ended with different things at the end. So we had, just to rattle a few off, we had Homo habilis, a really good one that came 700,000 years before, in 3.2 million years, which was, here's one for you, see if you can say this one, Homo australopithecus, which literally means southern ape. So these people, they weren't at all like we are now. That the best example of Australopithecus was a skeleton of a creature that they called Lucy, because there was a song playing on the radio at the time called Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, and I'm going to let you look that up, who actually sang this. I'm sure your parents know that one, but maybe you can look that up. And it was in 1974, and they found it, and they found 40% of the skeleton of an early female human, as I say, called Homo australopithecus, but it's very different to you. You're probably taller, actually. It was about 35 inches tall, and she was a herbivore. Now, you probably know what a herbivore is. Parents, if you want to pause it for a second and ask your children, you're quite welcome to do that. I'll give you 5 and then I'll give you the answer, okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So a herbivore is a creature that just eats plants, eats vegetable matter basically, as opposed to a carnivore, which eats meat, or an omnivore, which eats both, which is like us. So Lucy, if you like, Homo australopithecus was just a herbivore, not very good at hunting at all, if at all, probably didn't hunt. But then we get to the main one, Homo habilis, who started the Stone Age for us by sharpening a stone. As simple as that. So it's basically like this. They got one stone, then they got another, and I'm going to say it in English, but they wouldn't have said this, I'm sure. You ready? You can do this after me. You ready? Stone, stone, sharp stone. You've got to pause it and have a go at that. In fact, shall we all do it together? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Stone, stone, sharp stone. And that led to, of course, the start of the Stone Age, because it means making a tool. So that was the biggest period, the Paleolithic. Then we come to the Mesolithic, and the biggest point to make on this is that it basically starts when the Ice Age ends, 25,000 years to about 12,000 years BC. And there's another one for you. We've not even mentioned BC. I'm trying to pack it all in 15 minutes here. There's so much to pack in. I'm going to let you have a think about that as well. If you want to pause it, parents, and see if your pupil, your child, or teachers, if it's your pupil in schools, if they can guess what that is or work out what it is, I'll let you do that. Again, I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so it means before Christ. There is another phrase as well called before Common Era, BCE, but they both mean the same thing and they both count down. All the way up to 12,000 BC, which was the end of the Ice Age, about 25,000 to 12,000 BC. And I say about because these times are different all around the world in different countries because they had ice at different times and things like this. So some of the dates might be a bit tricky to follow. You can actually go on different websites and they'll have completely different dates for the start of the Mesolithic and things like that. So getting back to that, so the Mesolithic starts at the end of the Ice Age when Britain was covered with 1 kilometre of ice. So where you are now was covered probably between 500 metres actually and 1 kilometre of ice further up to when you get towards Scotland, and nothing lived here for 13,000 years. Now a good way to simulate this, again, if you want to pause it again, or maybe just turn the volume down a sec, and just imagine what it's like completely silent. There was nothing in England. Maybe you could pause it, see how quiet you could be in your house. And then that didn't last long. That only lasted 6,000 years. And then we come to the Neolithic. The Neolithic from approximately 4,000 BC. Like I say, it does vary a little bit, going all the way up to 2000 BC. Neolithic is characterized by farming. Mesolithic, I should say, is characterized by people coming together. There's also some distinct differences in the way that the tools were made as well, but we don't really need to go into that. It's a little bit complex, that, but basically it's about families coming together a little bit like we are now. And then you go on to the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, which we're going to cover in the next episode, but that's enough of the introduction. Let's get straight onto the artifacts. Okay, so we're going to start straight away with this one. So this here is an 80,000-year-old giant elk bone. Now the giant elk, so sometimes known as the Irish elk, or the technical name is the Megaloceros, and I shall make sure I put a picture up at this point so you can have a look at that, was a gigantic creature. Its antlers were 3.5 meters apart, so much longer than this table. This is about 2.8, something like 2.4, so much longer than this table. If you want to measure that out in your front room, just pace out, or get an adult to pace out 3.5 meters, and you can see how big its antlers were. Huge antlers, so a massive reindeer basically. And this is its rib bone. So you know this is connected at the back there. It comes round, and you can actually see the size of its tummy here. So it's a huge creature there. It's absolutely gigantic. 2.1 meters at the shoulder. So again, you can measure that out. Much bigger than sort of most adult male. There's not many that are 2 meters high, so most people are about 6 foot high, 1.8 meters, something like that. So so much bigger. This is a gigantic creature. So this is 80,000 years old, like I say. What I like about this one, I could never prove this, it's obviously shaped like a hammer, but it's also, and again I shall put pictures of this on the screen, it's also been bashed at the end here, so I like to think that it's been used as a tool. So that's that one. And then we're moving forward. We're going to carry on with the Paleolithic. It's such a big period. There's so much we could talk about. Into more advanced tools like this one. Now, this is my spear that I made. This is just a replica. And I made it out of hazelwood. Now, the reason, if I was in class with you, I would go into quite detail about this, about how I made it. But basically, the reason I made it was to find out, to get close to these Stone Age people, to find out what it was really like to have to make it and to have to use it. And I found out straight away that it's very difficult to throw. You can throw it for about 10 meters accurately. That's about it, really. And after that, you start to miss. I threw it a little hillock behind my house, and it was quite difficult to hit after about 10 meters, like I say. Now I will do a close-up picture of this. This is the end here. This is just a modern piece of flint. I think I just got this from a collector, so it's not an old one. And I've put it in here, but we have put it in with this special stuff here, with this glue. Now, lots of researchers and scientists have zoomed in on microscopes and worked out what this ancient pitch tar was made of. And I can give you the ingredients now, because I had to learn how to make it myself. So first of all, the first ingredient is this. You can see the dust coming off it. So this here is pitch pine. So this is also the stuff that's turned into amber after millions of years on a tree. So that's the sticky stuff from a tree. You get charcoal as well. Charcoal, of course, you can get from a fire. There you go. There's charcoal. And that gives it its dark colour, so you can see where you're putting it. and the secret ingredient, and I'm going to pause it a sec. If you want to pause it a second, just see if you can work it out. Ask your parents, see if you can, either of you can work out what it is. I'll give you a little clue, and I'm going to say this, it binds it together. So just have a pause if you want to have a think about that, and I'll give you 5 seconds again. I'm going to reveal it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You ready? I don't know if you can see it there. It's actually rabbit poo. Now this comes from my son's rabbit downstairs. She's called Bubbles. And if I think on, I'll put a picture of Bubbles on for you. So there you go. Okay, so let's carry on. So we've also got some flint, and I must take some from off the back here so I can show you. So here's some flint. Now this is real flint. This is 30,000 years old. This one here could be a hole maker, or it could actually be no, it's a hole maker, this one. So the hole makers tend to be triangular, otherwise known as a borer. That's another name for it as well. And you can always tell worked flint. Worked means when it's been smashed, because flint normally comes like this, and it comes all rounded. So it only goes black. You can only see the inside of it, or in this case brown, when you hit it. So it's very easy to identify, and you can actually see the little tiny places where they've hit it, which is called stress marks. So when you find this, you can actually count it and find out how many times it's been hit. So this one's 30,000 years old, but I want to show you this one. This is one of my favourite. This is a Neanderthal one. Now this is from a place called it's a Mousterian hand axe from France, and it's the Neanderthals come from a place called the Neanderthal region in France. That's why they're called Homo neanderthalensis, and we took over them. We was on Earth at the same time, but we think now that it was probably because they were living at the top of the Earth and they lived in a cold area, and they ended up dying off because of that. We don't know for definite, but it's really, really well worked, and it fits perfectly in your hand, just like that. Okay, so that's flint. And then we're going on. This is just a replica axe that I made. Of course, they got to the point where they could start to put the stones on actual wood sticks as well, and then they could use that as a tool to chop down trees. It'd be much sharper than this. Mine's not sharp at all because I take this one around schools. And then we get into the animals. So we're talking about the hunting now. We've looked at the spur. We've looked at the rib of the giant elk. But let's have a look at this now. I'll take it out of the box here to show you, and I will have to put pictures of this because it is quite small, like I say. And this one here is a cave bear tooth. This is 25,000 years old. These are from Poland, and a cave bear claw as well. Oh, sorry, wrong way around. So that one's the claw, and that one's the tooth. And now here's an interesting thing. If you compare the tooth to this one is a woolly rhino tooth. So you can probably guess which was the bigger animal. It was, of course, the woolly rhino. They were both herbivores because they've got this grinding surface here. So there you go. So that's the sort of animals we have. And I'm just going to finish this first one. I think we're already running over our 15 minutes with this one. This is my favourite object, and it's nothing to do with the fur that it's wrapped in. It is actually the thing that's inside. Now we're getting a lot more of these, sadly, because of global warming. I'm sure you've heard about that in school, the way that the planet is warming up more, and we're getting it's getting more defrosted, if you like, now. So a lot of the stuff that was frozen in ice, especially where this comes from in a place called Siberia, is actually being revealed now, because this is a mammoth tusk. This is a woolly mammoth tusk, and you can actually see the shape of it if you follow it around. But I think you can see here that I think this was probably a small creature, because mammoth tusks are normally 3 or 4 meters long and curl right round as big as this room here. And what I love about this is we call it the bark of the mammoth tusk because it's the outside. And I love this because it's got a really special feel when you touch it. And when I do go around schools, I like to let people just put their fingers on this and close their eyes and see if they can see the mammoth in the snow. And if any of your pupils, your children have been in any of my workshops, I'll let them tell you about that because it is quite an exciting task. So there we go. I do have many more artifacts, but I am trying to keep these to 15 minutes because it's a lot to take in. So I am saving the rest for later. We have so far done the Paleolithic, 2.5 million years, remember, early humans, all the way up to the Mesolithic with the Ice Age bridged in between when Britain was covered with 1,000 meters of ice, of course. And then next we're going to do the Neolithic, followed by the Bronze Age and Iron Age with some more artifacts. So I hope to see you again for the next one. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.